Recording in progress.
Yeah, so hello, welcome everybody to another webinar, the Community Supported Agriculture Network UK, the Land Workers Alliance, the Organic Growers Alliance, and the Seed Sovereignty Programme are working together to run monthly webinars the last Wednesday of every month throughout 2021. The webinar programme focuses on practical teaching and farmer-to-farmer knowledge exchanges from farmers and growers from around the UK. The series is designed to increase knowledge, exchange, and learning on both the politics and practice of agroecology and food sovereignty. We are grateful to Farming the Futures for their support of the programme. If you would like to be involved in running a webinar, have a theme or a practice you would like to know more about, or have a specific topic you would like to present on, please do get in touch. In this case, this month, I'll say you can get in touch with me. I'm Richie, the Scotland Seed Sovereignty Programme coordinator, and my address is richie@gaianet.org. I'm just putting it in the chat now. And today's session is going to be about processing seed. So very important, I think a very timely session at this time of year, as a lot of people are just starting to harvest their seed and bring it in. So we're joined today by Fred from Vital Seeds, who is going to be talking about processing probably on the scale that a lot of us are busy with at home, which is working with our hands and sieves, winnowing and things like this. And then we have Hans from the Seed Co-op, who's going to show us some of the machines and maybe like a step up, more industrialized, where I'm sure a lot of people want to get to with their seed saving if they're not already there yet. So welcome all, and thanks for joining. And without further ado, I guess let's get rolling. Fred, would you like to share your screen? Oh, sorry, actually, before Fred starts, I should say, if you have questions along the way, there's a Q&A box down the bottom of your screen. So try to keep your questions in the Q&A and use the chat just for chatting amongst the people attending and ourselves. But if you have questions for Fred or for Hans, please pop them into the questions and answers box. That way they're in one place, and after they've each spoken, we can pop in there and take out some good questions and get some nice answers. So without further ado, Fred.
Right. Hi, everybody. I can't see any of you. Yeah, great that you're all here. I haven't done one of these Zoom things before, so it's a little bit odd. So let's try and share screen. This one. So Richie, is that good?
Yeah, there's like two black pop-ups on screen.
Two black pop-ups.
Yeah, is there like a window there? Yeah. And then if you go back to your slide number 1, because you're already on slide number 4, I think, from before.
Oh yeah, if I go here.
From the beginning, yeah.
Are the black pop-ups gone?
Yeah, they have. You're perfect now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm just going to run through, like Richie said, some techniques for processing vegetable seeds by hand, kind of pretty basic equipment, which actually you can use to fairly, not large scale, but much more than you would ever need for yourself, and even small scale commercial, totally fine, this kind of equipment. So the kind of order of events, I'm just going to run through this is the order which I'm going to run through the things. This is the order which they'd happen in the field. First of all is harvesting your seeds. The next step is called drying down. So normally once you've harvested seeds, you need another kind of, you harvest them when they're not completely ripe on the plant, and then you bring them in and you hang them up, or you put them on a rack, or whatever kind of technique you've got to kind of further ripen the seeds. And it's kind of a bit of like a last push. The plant kind of ripens. Any seeds that were not quite ripe when you harvested them will then ripen in the process of drying down. And the next stage after that is threshing, which is essentially breaking up the plant material, separate the seeds from the mother plant. And then screening, which is sieving, winnowing, which is using the wind or just moving air basically to blow off light chaff, and then leaves your nice heavy seeds behind. And I put brackets hot water treat there because this is something which we do with some of our seeds. And it's a thing about killing off kind of molds on the seed and that kind of thing, and some seed-borne diseases as well. And then germination testing the seed and final drying, so they're kind of drying before storage. So harvesting, depending on the kind of scale you're on, those small paper bags are great for things like, you know, if you're like harvesting flower heads and that kind of thing, and you're only going to be taking a small amount at a time because you're going to go through the crop lots of times over the season. So you take off the flowering heads, put them in a bag. And so the next kind of step up from that would be just using a bucket. And buckets are really good. Buckets and trugs are really good because they're easy to clean. We have absolutely hundreds of buckets, not hundreds, lots of buckets and trugs. We use them for all sorts of stuff. And they're good for harvesting individual seed heads or branches as well. You can get fairly large trugs, I'm sure you're aware, but you can get some pretty massive ones, which are really good. So trugs just in those. And then those small dumpy sacks. So I don't know if you've seen these, they're kind of half the size of the big meters cube sacks, and they're actually really useful for harvesting stuff from the field because they're obviously much smaller. You can fit them in a wheelbarrow quite easily. They're easy to store because they squash up in a kind of a squashy way. One drawback of using these is that they're much more difficult to clean. In a trug or a bucket, obviously, it's just like a clean surface and you can wash it out and wipe it down. With a dumpy sack, because of the stitching, that kind of thing, you know, if you're harvesting very small seeds, there's a danger that the seeds will get stuck in the seams and that kind of thing, which makes them difficult to clean. Things like beans and peas, they're really, really great for, very easy. And when we're harvesting whole plants, if we're doing brassicas in the field and that kind of thing, we would actually just take whole plants, cut them off at the base and just carry them individually or in bunches to the drying racks to hang them up. So for the drying down process, we use hanging fencing panels, which is actually something which I first saw at the Seed Co-op, and they work really, really well. We use these harass fencing, which is the stuff that's used at festivals, temporary fencing panels. You can get them secondhand. They cost about 25 to 35 quid each. There are different kinds of these. Some of them are much better than others. You want the ones which have a one solid piece of metal all the way around 3 edges, and then just a thin piece on the bottom. We bought some recently, and they're basically really crap, and they're falling apart, and they're made of 4 bits of metal welded together, not welded very well. So that, you know, make sure you get good ones. And these hang up in the tunnels. This is going to stop rodents and that kind of thing from being able to get your seeds, and also increases the airflow around the plants, which is really important. Airflow is probably more important than temperature for drying. And also, so we've discovered that a double duvet cover ripped open, as it were, fits exactly on one of these panels. Otherwise, before we were using sheets, and you'd have to have them overlapping, and that made it kind of annoying when we were cleaning them up. But yeah, double duvet cover works really well. And you can make your own smaller racks out of just bits of batten with wire mesh over the top, or on wire mesh, that kind of thing. Really basic stuff. And good to remember when you're drying stuff down, you don't want to pile up your crops too thick, because they need the air to circulate. If you've got a big pile of slightly wet material, it's going to mold very easily. So yeah, you can, if you have more than you think is safe, you can kind of turn the pile every day or something like that. We try not to do that because it's a real pain to turn. I would say general rule would be you might want to not pile things up more than 50 centimeters deep. Obviously, it depends how open the plants are and how much air you think can circulate within there. You can always just keep checking, and if you think there's any danger, then give it a turn. So once the plants have dried down on the racks, the next stage of processing is threshing. So on a small scale, large trugs are very useful for this. You can literally just chuck the stuff into a trug, jump up and down on it, stamp on it, dance on it, whatever, and the seeds fall out into the bottom. then the chunky stalks will kind of stay on top, and you can just take the stuff off the top. Oh yeah, so this is a good point. So you don't want to pile the stuff up too deeply. This applies to most of these techniques of threshing. You don't want to pile the stuff up too deep because it has a kind of cushioning effect. You want to make sure that you have enough kind of impact force on the seeds and the seed heads that they're going to break open. If you have a really thick pile, then all of that together will reduce the kind of impact possibility. So on a slightly larger scale, you can use tarps. Tarps are really useful. So a good technique is basically laying out plants on a tarp. You want to dry down all of the seed heads, as you can see on this video here. They're all facing the same direction. This is lettuce seeds. And you basically put them on the tarp and just walk over them essentially. So depending on how much you have to do, you can walk on them or you can drive on them as well. Lots of farmers do that. They have big pickup trucks and they put all of their plants out and just drive over the whole lot. I was talking to Frank from Wild Garden Seed in America recently. They're a fairly large seed company. They don't have a thresher. They do everything just using tarps and their pickup trucks. So you can do this up to hundreds of plants at a go. So I'll just play the video first. You can do this with all sorts of crops. This is just lettuce. This would work for brassicas or parsley or umbellifers, carrots, anything really. And if you're going to do this, you do want to do it on a good dry day. I think finding the perfect time for doing this stuff is actually quite difficult because you really want a bit of moisture in the air so that you don't get too much bits of plant material shattering off, but then you want it to be dry enough so that all the seeds do separate. Realistically, we just kind of do it when we can fit it in and it seems to be fine. With lettuce, I would just add, this technique does create a bit of a messy mix at the end, which does increase the cleanup of the final seed lot. So you can with lettuce also just shape the heads into a big blue, like a mango chutney barrel, that kind of thing. And then the seeds will fall off. You'll get a cleaner mix. But if you're doing, 50, 100 plants, then I think this is probably better. So once you've done this, the next stage is basically kind of picking up plants or bunches of the plants and just giving them a whack with a stick. Just make sure that any seeds that have kind of come detached and they're detached, but they're still within the kind of framework of the plant. You can just hold them up, whack them with a stick, they'll all fall to the ground, and then discard the plant into the compost. And then you just scoop all of this stuff up and screen it, basically. It's really, really simple. So screening is the next stage. At this point, you've got a kind of a mixture of seeds and lots of chaff, and it's kind of quite messy. And the idea of screening is to basically get rid of the big stuff, the big bits of chaff, and let the small stuff go through. But of course, you're also going to let through the stuff which is the same size as the seeds go through, or the same size as whatever screen you're using. So you can put things through a big screen first to take out the big stuff, and then put them through a smaller screen to take out the stuff which is smaller than the seeds. Realistically, we don't tend to do that because the stuff which is smaller than the seeds does tend to winnow off really easily. So, but it's always an option to do that if you need to. You might have actually little bits of soil in your seeds, for instance. Hopefully not, but you might do, and they might come out better with screening. So it's good to have a good selection. So you can see we've got lots of different sizes. We've actually just ordered a load more because we just think it's really useful to have lots of different sizes. But obviously we're doing a lot of this, so it makes sense for us to have lots. You can do a lot of things with just 6mm or 1/4 inch wire cloth. So I think this is that size there, and that screen, maybe one of those as well. That works really well for a lot of stuff. All brassicas, lettuce, spinach, beetroot. Some beetroot will get caught in it if you've got really big seeds, but not too bad. And you can easily make these screens by hand. I've got a PDF which I'll share somehow with you. I think we were going to put it on the OGA page. Phil said something about that, so he can figure that one out. It's just a guide how to make a seed screen. And there's something I would just add to that. On the PDF, I made it a while ago, but actually we've kind of realized that the way the screens are made, there's a small bit of batten kind of in between the batten, which is the main frame. And actually it's really, really useful if the bottom bit, which is holding on the mesh, is not the same width as the batten itself. If it's, you know, even just 5 mil thinner, then it means that the seeds will just fall straight down through the screen. If they're exactly the same width, then you basically end up with this gap where the screen is, and the seeds can get stuck in there, which has happened a bit to us recently. So I think, yeah, anything to just make the seeds go straight down through with no opportunity for sticking. But you don't want seeds mixing up, obviously. So yeah, this company called Mesh Direct, they sell A4 samples of all of their meshes, which are really useful. They cost about 10 quid maybe. They're a little bit small, to be honest. I think that one down there, that's the size. But for a small scale, they're really handy, and then we shouldn't have to buy a big piece of mesh, and you can have a lot of different sizes. Round and slotted holes are really useful. We don't have a lot of round holes. We've got one slotted one, which is this one up here, which we use for lettuce. But to be honest, the slots aren't fine enough. We've ordered a much finer one. The round holes are obviously really good for things like brassicas, and bigger ones for peas. There are lots of round seeds which work well. Oops. So also just using things like mushroom crates, they work really well for peas, and they're everywhere. You know, they do have different size holes, but if you can find one with kind of 10 mil holes, they work really well. So yeah, you want to screen into a trug, or we just recently bought this big square seed tray, which is really useful. The advantage of having a round screen is that it can fit inside a trug. Then you can just kind of shake the whole thing together. So after screening, yeah, the result you have is a mixture of seeds and chaff still, but it'll be a much finer mixture. And then the next thing is separating by weight, which is what winnowing is. So there's a few ways you can winnow. The most basic way is just to pour the seed mixture from one bucket into another. You put one down on the floor, hold the other one, and you pour the seeds down from one into the other. Make sure you put a tea towel or something at the bottom of the bottom bucket, because if you're doing it with brassica seeds, they all just bounce out otherwise, and you definitely don't want that. Also good to put a sheet underneath the bottom one, so that anything which might kind of blow off the edge, you can just check that you haven't lost too much seeds. And then you can just pour them down, either in the wind, if you have a decent breeze. You don't want a really heavy breeze, but just kind of steady is the most important thing. And then the chaff will blow off and the heavy seeds will drop into the bucket. Really simple, really fun, and a very kind of ancient way of cleaning seeds. It just feels nice. Of course, you can also use a desk fan, which if you just need to do it and you haven't got the patience to wait, or you know the weather's just not right, or you're inside or something like that, you can use a desk fan, which works really well because it creates a steady flow. Another option is to build a seed cleaner, real seeds, spent from real seeds. Designed this really clever seed cleaning machine, which I'm sure some of you might have seen around, and it's very easy to make, very cheap to make, really effective, and makes no mess, which is really good. What else? Yeah, it feels like a very simple machine which doesn't create more problems. Lots of machines, as Hans might allude to, they kind of create problems as well as solving them. So I have got a little video of this machine in action. I'm kind of going to pause it and play it a bit just to make sure we get the right clips. Basically up here, this is where the seed goes in. So that's the mixture. This is cornflower seeds. That's kind of basically a mixture of petals and cornflower seeds. That's going in the front on the top. Seeds fall down through this kind of zigzag chute and out the bottom, and air is being sucked up here by the vacuum. Seeds dropping out the bottom, and that's too late. Really clean. then that's all the petals that have been sucked out the side. And then this thing up here is to regulate the airflow. So for very light seeds like lettuce, we have it a bit open, and cornflower as well. If we're putting peas or something like that through, or radish, you probably have it fully closed. And it's a clever design because the chaff gets sucked off here, and then this is a very high pressure zone here, and then up here, because it opens up, the pressure drops, which means as opposed to all of the chaff just getting sucked into the vacuum cleaner, it then just drops down here, so you can collect it and you can make sure you're getting the right stuff and you haven't sucked off loads of seeds or whatever. So really clever design and well worth building. Also really worth making it easy to take the front off. This was like a bit of a kind of adaptation to Ben's design. These are just, they're called toggle clips. And it just means that we can just take the front off, hoover it, put it back on, and it's completely clean for the next go. Hot water treatment. So yeah, this is just a really simple way to kill off seed-borne diseases and fungal spores on seeds. It only works with small seeds. Big seeds, you just trash the seeds if you do this, basically. But I've got a PDF of how to do this, which I can share. There's also there's a video, there's a YouTube video on our channel, which depending on how much time we've got, we could watch now, or you can watch it in your own time. Basically, the principle is you're just using hot water, and it's different. You use different temperature for different species. That's all in the PDF. So, for instance, lettuce is, I don't know, 48 degrees or something like that. And we've just made a really simple setup with a cool box and a sous vide cooker. Sous vide is a kind of like it's a slow cooker using an electric, like a kind of wand that you put in the water, and it circulates the water around and holds the temperature exactly kind of perfect. And then you put the seeds in there in mesh bags for a very specific amount of time. And yeah, it just kills off any fungal things and viruses and all sorts of stuff. I think it can affect the storage quality of the seeds. So we would never do it with a large seed lot. We would do it with just the amount which we were going to pack it up and sell in, I don't know, 6 months. I think it wouldn't have a huge effect on storability, but you wouldn't want to do it to, 5 kilo batch of lettuce or whatever. We'd do it to kind of, I don't know, 150 grams at a time or something like that. Yeah, so like I've written there. So if we've grown stuff and then we germination test it, and there's a bit of mold in the germ test, then we will heat treat it just to make sure that it's really nice and clean. And then this is quite a nice photo. This is the same seed lot, and down here this was the one without heat treatment, and then this was the one with heat treatment. So you can see that one is just really clean and crystal clean, and that one, there's a bit of mold appearing there and could be better. So once we've done all these things, the next and kind of almost final stage is germination testing the seeds. So there's loads of ways you can do this. The most simple way is this way, I think, which is we call the roll-up sausage method. Probably got other names as well. So there's also a video of this which we could watch, or you can watch in your own time. And there's also a PDF of doing this too, which I'll share. And basically, you get a piece of wet kind of tissue paper. It doesn't want to be too the kind of things you get in public toilets. Seems to work really well. It's much better than and also it's darker, so you can see the seeds. You wouldn't want to use toilet paper or kitchen paper. I don't think it would have enough substance to it. So you basically make a row of your seeds, a zigzag row here, and then you moisten it and you fold that edge up over it and roll it up into a sausage, and then you can put that in a small plastic baggie, put it somewhere warm, and then the seeds will germinate. So now you could put 25 seeds in there, and then you just times however many germinated by 4, and you've got your percentage. Or you could do 50 or however many you wanted to do. Yeah, it'd be good if we can watch the video. Let's see if we've got time. Oh, that was it. Cool. So we're Richie, have we got time to watch a couple of these videos?
I think absolutely. If they're shorts, I think people will be very interested to see.
Cool. Okay, let's yeah.
With MailChimp, you can create more engaging emails, more tasty dumpling sales.
Yeah.
Because you are sharing your PowerPoint screen, you need to stop share and then reshare it with your internet browser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richie.
No worries.
Stop share.
You could do share screen again, and don't forget to click to optimize audio before clicking share again.
Optimize audio. Yeah. This is quite an old video. Our first office we ever had. Is that working?
Mm-hmm.
Seeds, and in this video I'm going to show you a really easy way to germination test your seeds at home. To do this, you'll need some tissue paper, your seeds, some water, and a small plastic bag. First thing to do is to wet the tissue paper, but don't drench it. Then make a zigzag with 25 seeds, starting 2 centimeters from the edge and leaving 1 centimeter space at the top of the tissue paper. Then fold up the tissue paper, bringing the bottom edge to the top and roll it into a sausage. Then place this sausage inside your plastic bag and leave it in a warm place for a week or two, depending on the kind of seed you're testing. After the seeds have had enough time to germinate, remove them from the plastic bag, unroll the sausage, and unfold the tissue, revealing the germinated seeds. You can then count these seeds and times that number by 4 to get a germination percentage.
Okay, that's that.
Wonderful.
Should we watch the hot water treatment one as well? You got time for that?
If it's like another minute and a half one, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not a long one.
Yeah.
Oh, works.
It's in
Treatment. Okay, is that coming through?
Hello, this is Fred here from Vital Seeds. Today I'm going to make a video to show you about how to do a kind of seed treatment called hot water treatment, which is a way of kind of killing any mold spores that you have on the seed coat of a seed. And this is a really low-tech way of treating seeds, and it works well for small seeds like lettuce or brassicas or anything small like that. Bigger seeds it doesn't work very well with.
So Rich, I've just seen it is 5 minutes long. I think we should wait if there's time at the end, watch it.
How about we share this link with people?
Yeah.
If you could pass it on to me, and then we'll send it out with the recording.
Yeah,
with
sure.
the PDF, and people can watch it at home. I think that might be pushing our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thanks very much, and very interesting that you are doing this hot water treatment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some questions that have popped up. Someone saying they would love to see the photographs of your hanging fence panels. I guess that could be saved for another day.
Yeah, we could. I mean, we could easily send some over. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
if you have some photos that you could as well pass along with the links and the other documents that you're sending on to the participants tonight, I think people will be very interested to see this.
Sure. I might even be able to find some while Hans is talking and share them. We'll see. I'm not sure if I've got any to hand.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned quickly, but someone asked, where did you order your sieves? I guess it's more where you ordered the wireframe from and you made the sieves yourself. But
Yeah, so we've kind of got our sieves the mesh and stuff from various places. We did get quite a lot of stuff from Mesh Direct. We've just ordered a load of sieves from an American company. I'll find the name and I can share that before we finish. They're called Quality Custom Screen. They're not cheap. They are. How much were they? Just the metal, I think it was $75 for a piece of the screen is 12 by 18 inches. So it's quite expensive. I think they are custom made, and you can basically get any size you could possibly imagine. So they do any size round hole, they do any size slotted hole, they do kind of herringbone pattern. So I was pointed to these guys by Frank from Wild Garden Seeds, because I was asking him about how he cleans up his lettuce. And he said that particularly one of the ones that they do, which I could find out and share, he said was a total game changer for his lettuce seed production. He said they kind of bought it on a whim, and it was immediately just was a big difference for them.
Yeah.
But obviously it's stuff that's going to come from America, so it costs a lot to ship. But the kind of thing that you could go in with a big group of people and buy stuff, and you have the economies of scale.
Absolutely. And I'd say like anything like that, it's expensive to start, but then you have it for life. You're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And if it's going to save you hundreds of hours over years from, just having the right thing that you can just chuck your seeds through and they just come out clean. Yeah, that's really useful.
So moving on to the next question. Have you done a final cleaning of onion and radish seed by immersing in water so all the chaff light seeds float off? Do you use this method, Fred?
Not with radish. We've never needed to with radish, because they tend to winnow fairly easily. But we have done that with leek seed before. I think we did it with onion. It works well. It's quite scary, because you're putting all of this precious seed that you've just dried after 2 years of growing it, and you just chuck it all in a bucket of water. It feels a bit scary, but it does work. It works really well. All the chaff does float to the top, and then you just have to make sure you get it out and just dry it very, very quickly. So have that all set up, ready to go. It's good screen, so you can lay it out in a single layer and put a fan or dehumidifier or both, and just make sure you just get that moisture off it really quickly. It works really well.
Yeah, thank you. And then what number of seed is recommended for optimal germination testing?
Always the more the better. Obviously, if you test 1,000 seeds, you're going to get a very good number. We do 100 of everything, basically. That just feels like a fairly simple number to do. You could also do 50. I think did we used to do 50? Maybe. But it's a lot of counting. We've had to test probably well over 100 seed lots this summer. That's counting out thousands and thousands of seeds. But 100 is good. Then you just get a really nice clean percentage, and you could always do 50. And then if you get 49 of them germinate, then you can say, okay, well, that's obviously really good. And if you do 50 and you get 35, then maybe you say, okay, I'll do it again with 100. Might be an option.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd do. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Fred. So we're going to be moving along swiftly. Before we introduce Hans and get him to go, I do want to plug the Land Workers Alliance have a webinar coming up on the 27th of October, cultivating a healthy work culture on your farm. So this is something I'm sure that a lot of people here will be very interested in taking part in. It's going to be Wednesday, the 27th of October from 6 until 7:30. And I will put a link now in the chat to the Eventbrite. So that's a link, to everyone, to Land Workers Alliance next webinar coming up, which I'm sure will be very interesting for a lot of people here. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Hans. Hans, would you like to introduce yourself a little first, and then we'll run into your presentation. You're on mute, Hans.
Okay, so I'm Hans Steenbergen, and I'm one of the founder members of the Seed CoOp, and now I'm only involved as more as an advisor, and Before the Seed Co-op, I run Stormy Hall Seeds. That started in the 1993, I think we started with that. And from that time, we built up quite an array of seed cleaning machinery, which is now at the Seed Co-op. So my presentation is more about the different machines and what they actually do sort on. But I have a short introduction, and I'll probably go over a few of the similar things, and Fred went over about threshing and so on, but this time threshing by machine. And so I can run my presentation now. Share screen. Yeah, so can you see that now? Is that okay, Richie? Come on, mute.
My apologies. Yeah, the one in the middle is gone now. Yeah.
Okay.
If you full screen, we should be ready to go.
Is that okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So first, a little bit about the harvesting.
Actually, Hans, there is still actually 2 pop-ups on it on the middle of the screen. Do you see those, or is that just us?
There's a what?
There's a black, it's a black box for us,
Oh yeah,
but I don't know if is that the Zoom windows?
that's the, let me take that away.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fine now. If you
Yeah.
want to start again.
okay, yeah,
Apologies.
yeah. Okay, so Fred already mentioned the harvesting can be done in many ways. One of the important things that I have noticed in my experience is when to harvest, because ripe seeds often fall out, and vegetable seeds do not ripen evenly like a cereal crop is bred for ripening at an even time, and we have to sort of decide when to harvest, when it's the optimum time to harvest, and that's quite a difficult decision to make. And so if you harvest too early, the seeds are not fully ripe and dry. Too late, they're already dropped off or eaten by birds. And so there's 2 ways you can harvest seeds in one cut, like with broad beans, peas, spinach, radishes, or you can harvest several times, like you can do with parsnips, carrots, tomatoes, peppers, and so on. So we can use mechanical harvesters. So there's a combine harvester. I mean, this is taken in at a Swiss seed company. The Seed Co-op doesn't have that. You can use a mower, tractor mower, or you can use a binder. You can see there an oats crop at Stormy Hall. It's Stormy Hall in the background there. And yeah, so that's been done with a binder. You can harvest by hand, sickle, knife, secateur. You can see in the picture people harvesting linseed, and they just cut them with a secateur and bundle them up. Ripening after cutting, the plants further ripen, so immediate threshing is sometimes not possible, and so plants are cut. Sometimes just the seed heads, as you see in the foreground with parsnips, or the whole plants. and they just taken inside, put on tarps and dry. Sometimes hot air is needed, or an empty greenhouse or polytunnel. But the most important thing is air flow, ventilation. There should be plenty of ventilation. As Fred already said, if you pile crops too thick, they go moldy fairly quickly. And the Seed Co-op, I mean, uses, well, Fred got this method of these fences. Actually, I developed that and passed it on to the Seed Co-op, and it seems to be a very good method. You hang them up or you put them on boxes, so there is airflow underneath as well. And yeah. So then it comes to the threshing. You need to wait till the plants are dry. Obviously, when you have dealing with fruits, you have to follow the wet seed extraction, which happens with tomatoes and pumpkins and so on. Threshing can be done mechanically with machines or with flails, sticks, hands, feet. Damage to the seeds is the biggest danger, and even, you know, especially with machines, if you don't set the machine up properly, you end up with a lot of broken seeds, and that, yeah, that's not desirable. So there's a little video clip of people using the threshing machine, which is now at the Seed Co-op. It's an American-made one. I was lucky enough to buy that secondhand, which was used at one of the big cereal seed breeders in Lincolnshire as a trial plot thresher. So they harvest the cereals by hand and then put them through this machine to thresh. So it wasn't too expensive at the time. So they're not wearing ear protectors or mask, you know. So they do now. It's a crop of peas day threshing. There's a belt feed that feeds it into the machine, to the threshing drum. And then on the end there's a sieve that separates the seed from the straw. So in the end. And it also blows some wind through it, so the seeds come out fairly clean. You can see there we do it outside. The peas have been drying inside on these racks, and we can just lift up a whole rack and carry them through the threshing machine. It's quite handy as well. Now, after threshing, you have to make sure the seeds are dry enough. If they're not dry, they can heat up or go moldy quite quickly, and they are. You can put them out on a screen or a rack or a sheet, spread out and not you know, in big heaps together. But I also use in Germany, in the bigger seed community, drying boxes, which is blows air through from the bottom with a fan attached to it on the outside, the bottom. You can use heat as well. As you know, many of the cereal growers, they use these grain dryers, as they call them. But if you want to preserve the germination quality, you shouldn't dry above 32 Celsius. because that can damage the germination. So the next is the pre-cleaning. This takes place sometimes before drying the seeds, so that reduce the amount of straw and chaff to dry. Then it goes to the sort of seed cleaning process. You see the purpose is, to lower the volume of material, prevent disease transfer from chaff and straw to seed. So that's why it's obviously done fairly quickly after threshing, and the clean seed is less affected by pests that will attack the seed. And clean seed can be used in seed drills and be easily packed and so on. For your own use, you don't have to do a lot of cleaning. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of chaff and stuff in that when you sow, especially when you sow things by hand. But for sale, if, the Seed Coop sells the seeds, there's standards that need to come up to a minimum standards, which used to be the EU minimum standards, but obviously now it's the UK standards after Brexit. Anyway, so there's the cleaning process, which not all seeds go through all the steps, but the most common process is the de-awning, and after threshing, sometimes seeds have so stalks attached or have hairs on them, are sometimes two seeds in a cluster together, and so you use a rubbing machine or a de-awning process, and it's just basically rubbing the seed. You can do that by hand as well, and that removes stalks, and like carrot seeds, it removes the hairs on the seed, because otherwise, to sieve carrot seeds, they just stick together all the time. You need to get these hairs off. So the first step we use is winnowing, aspiration, it's airflow, either by sucking or blowing, then a screen. Then the next step is the indent cylinder and the gravity separator. Then there's separating seeds on collar. Sometimes it's mostly done by human eye, but in the bigger seed companies, they use the electronic eye or computer operated machines. You can sort seeds by texture, like a felt cloth or an inclined table or a belt cleaner. You can sort seeds by shape, like using the spiral cleaner, floating, which was already mentioned, and by volume. So we can go through each of these first. So the de-awning and rubbing. There you see the one we have, the Seed Coop, and it's basically a drum, and it has 4 pedals with rubber flaps on them. The drum gets closed, and you fill in seed from the top, and it spins around. And then when you open the drum up again, the seed fall out the bottom, and it rubs the seeds. You can also put brushes in, which is a different sort of action, but it makes the seed, flow better in the following process. And the clean seed, can be used in precision drills and so on. So the aspiration and winnowing. So the seeds are basically dropped into an airflow. I put there a picture from a Chinese company. Now our trade relations with China are much better, as I hear. But there's a lot of machines available in China, and this is a hand-cranked winnower. We have still an old wooden version of that somewhere in the shed, which we used to use. but you still can buy them new. Yeah, it can be low tech, it can be high tech with the positions winnower that Fred showed. You can very exactly separate lighter bits from the heavier ones. So the screens, sieves, the most common hole shaped is the round or the slotted or the square one that Fred showed. Some of the machines have a combination of several layers of sieves, and it's sort, you know, the principle is they're sorting seed by size. Yeah. So obviously not all seeds are round, so some seeds have, you know, they have different dimensions. You have seeds which are longer than they're thick, and so with a sieve, it's the, you know, it's the thickness, because the seed will go through a sieve lengthways if they're not round, and so so it sorts seeds by size, and yeah. The machine on the right is in combination. It's got sieves. It's not the one we have the seed at the Seed Coop, but it's a fairly similar machine. It's got sieves in the middle here. You can see, and it has it sucks air in these end columns here where the seed comes out. It sucks air, and so it just basically hoovers the dust away, the lighter bits. Sieves. Then the next machine is the Indent Cylinder, which is the one in the forefront, and that sorts seeds by length. So longer seeds from shorter seeds, and for instance can separate wheat from barley due to the different length of the seed. They are, you can see here, they are set up from one into the other, so the seed flows from the sieve into the indent cylinder, and basically the seed drops into the cylinder, and the cylinder has indents in it, and the machine turns around, and in the end I'll show you a video. You can see how it works, and it picks up anything that fits into the indent. It picks up, carries up on the left side and drops into the tray in the middle. Anything that doesn't fit in the indent just falls out in the cylinder on the front. You'll see that in the video. So that's sorting seeds by length, indent cylinder. Then the next machine we'll use is the gravity separator, which sorts seeds by specific weight. And for this to work well, the seeds need to be similar size, because you know, if they're larger size and large and small mixed together, it doesn't work so accurately. So with parsnip seeds, we grade all the seeds into two different sizes and then put them on the gravity table. So specific weight, I hope everybody remembers Archimedes in his bath, you know, specific weight is the density, you know, how, and this is used for seeds like parsnip seeds, which some, you know, the seeds which haven't got a fully developed germ in it are still fairly similar in size and length, obviously, and so they can't be separated off any other way than with a gravity separator. And this is caused with many of in the carrot and umbel family due to poor pollination. Yeah, so seeds which haven't been properly pollinated, haven't got a fully developed germ. So if you would harvest all the seeds from one parsnip plant and you would do a germination test, it often is around 50%. If you have a good year where the pollination is good, it'd be a bit higher. If you have a bad year, it can be as low as 35%. We had some years. And so that is not desirable for many growers. They want seed that germinate at 80, 90%. So they get all put over the seed gets put over the gravity separator, and it separates off the seeds, and the dense seeds come out on the right hand side, and the not so dense seeds on the left hand side. And so I put all the seeds over the gravity table, do another germination test of the heavy seeds. For instance, take the last 2 boxes or the last 3 boxes, mix them together, do a germination test, and see if it has improved. If it hasn't, goes in a second time over it till we get to the desired germination percentage. Obviously, you'll be throwing away a lot of seed, and some years, you'll be throwing away half your seeds to get to the desired germination rate. As it says, it's also used for upgrading. But it also, bits which are in there, like stones or bits of soil, which have the same size as the seed you're cleaning. They have a higher specific weight, so they can be separated out without stones, or lighter bits of chaff or straw, which are exactly the same size as the seed, will come out with the gravity separator. I've already talked about the color sorting. It's done by people still a lot. A lot of the peas, of the French beans which are produced in Africa, are sorted by color by people. But nowadays there are very computer-controlled electronic eyes, and there's on the right, you see there a picture of one of those machines. And basically what it does, it drops seeds one by one in front of a camera. That camera takes a photo, and that which is connected to a computer, and that computer then analyzes the color and whatever, and then decides if it is the right color. And if it's not, it will opens a little air valve and blows the seed to one way into the waste bin. Obviously that takes time, each seed has to drop in front of one. And so this machine, I think it's a 15 or 20 channel one, so 20 cameras all connected to the one computer. And but it still takes time. So this machine is set up in the evening, and then once it's set up, it runs overnight, and the next day they come back and it's sorted for them. But there are still people who are willing to sort seeds, particularly French beans, by hand. So even Bingenheim, which is a quite fairly large organic seed company, they still have people sorting seeds by hand, because it gives people a job in the winter on rainy days or wintry days. Seed texture. So seed can be sorted on the texture of the seed. So some are rough and some are smooth. Weed seeds, weed seeds are rough, like cleavers and so on. And a belt grader is one of the machines used, but it's been basically developed. On the right, you see a picture of one thing I made up myself, and it works slightly different than the spiral cleaner, because you can change the angle of the cloth. And this is just a piece of plywood with a linen sheet glued on, and then you can put one end up, and you drop the seed on the top, and it rolls down the chute, the bottom. Things which aren't so round, or things which are rough, or like with beet seed, which they have a little stalk on them, they don't roll down, and they stay behind on the cloth. And then after, and you can change the angle, by putting it on a box, it's slow, sort of highering and lowering till they get the right momentum on the seeds to roll down or not. And you don't have that adjustment with a spiral cleaner, because it's always the same angle. So light seeds like beetroot seed won't go down a spiral cleaner, but they will go onto a belt cleaner. Obviously, the debris or the not so round bits stay behind, and you need to then clean off the cloth now and then by wiping it off or hoovering it off. And then they sort of made it into a machine where there's a belt which turns, and the belt rolls uphill. So the seed drop onto the belt. The round ones don't get taken up by the belt. They roll down slowly to the bottom. But the bits which don't roll down get taken to the top and drop off on the top. So the debris comes out on the top, and the round seed comes out on the bottom. And with this one, you can change also again the angle according to the seed. This is very easy to make, that board. So that's the spiral cleaner. Couldn't find a picture of the one we had at the Seed Co-op, but it looks fairly similar to this one. So not so round seeds, from round seeds. It works very well with cabbage seeds and pea seeds, if you have any broken seeds in it. And basically how it works, you can see there's 3 spirals which are interlocking. The seed gets dropped in the top, in the inner spiral, and start rolling down the inner spiral. And if it's very round, it gains speed, and it jumps over to the next spiral. Then again, goes further down, it gains more speed, it jumps over to the next spiral, and then each spiral has its own outlet. So not so round bits stay in the inner spiral. The very round bits come out in the end, at the very end there. It works also for cereals, for instance. If you have cleavers in your barley, because the cleaver seeds are quite round, it takes them out quite well. Floating, we talked about it. As Fred said, it's quite sort of scary, to dump all your seeds which you just dried and so on into a bucket or a bin, and so you need to dry them afterwards again. So the impurities flow to the top, sink to the bottom. The seed sinks to the bottom. Volume. Now there are machines for that as well. I haven't got a picture of that, but the principle is like in a, in your muesli. If you have it in a box, all the large dried fruits always come to the top. If you shake it, and that's to do with the volume. That's sort of, you expect the heavy bits, big bits go to the bottom, but actually, when you shake a box with muesli, the big bits come to the top. So that's, and there's still sort of a few pictures of how to deal with fruit, tomatoes. It just shows you the whole process: extracting the seed, fermenting the seed, and then washing the seed, and sieving, washing off all the debris, and then in the end drying the seed. And we always dry the seeds or pre-dry them with a hairdryer, so the outside of the seed is fairly dry and they don't stick together then. And then we lay them out on a tray to further dry, and then they're not stuck together, which you then later on you have to sort of rub them again loose. So it shows the machines in action. The seed flows from the sieve into the indent cylinder, and then you will see, and all these machines, to keep the sieve clean, they have some kind of mechanism to keep them clean, and this machine has a little sort of hammer which bounces up onto the sieve to keep the sieve clean. The other one, the big seed cleaner we have at the Seed Co-op, they have the sieves and they sit in frames, and underneath are rubber balls which bounce on the bottom to keep the sieves clean. And they all have adjustments. This one has adjustments to the steepness, of the sieve. You can put it on more of a or less of an angle, and yeah, it takes a little bit of trial and error and experience to find the right setting for the machine. But in the end, a lot of the seeds can be fully cleaned without any handwork. Often just in the end, a little bit of picking out little bits and so on. But yeah, so, and the seed on this machine this time was, as I remember, it's taken a long time ago. I think it was, what's it called? I can't remember what it was. Some herb seed. Oh yeah, summer savory, which is quite a small seed, and was in the end quite difficult to clean. But you will see the result in the end. So it's a bit noisy. So that's dropping off the bit, the seed actually falls through the sieve, comes out the bottom, and then falls straight into the indent cylinder. You can see the seeds get picked up and dumped into the tray. The larger bits, they then get bigger. Gravity separator in action. Heavy seeds come to the right hand side. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Hans. Very interesting. It's great to see those machines at work. If you've ever spent an autumn and a winter shelling peas by hand, to watch that thresher machine do that much in a minute and a half video is a thing of absolute beauty, I would say. So there's a couple of questions that come into the chat. If you're okay, I'll just go through them one by one as they came in. So someone's asking, does the gravity separator need calibration often?
Well, it has several adjustments, and you can adjust the speed, the table shakes, and the angle of the table, forward and up can be adjusted. So you need to, for each seed, you need to set the right setting for it. And yeah, it is a bit, with experience, what the sort of average setting is to start off with. But yeah, you can, during the process, you can adjust the speed of the table, or you can adjust the wind which comes through it to get the right separation.
Yeah, thanks very much. Someone else was asking, what grade of linen is used on your homemade grader?
Well, it was just an old bed sheet.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But you can experiment, you can experiment with different, like I said, you can have like a more felt one, or this one is quite a smooth sort of bed sheet.
Yeah, I'd say experimentation is the key with all these kind of things, especially the homemade stuff.
Yeah.
So another question: do you sort by color because it's good seed in a certain color, or is it a selection of a preference thing?
Well, no, it's so peas and beans. They have like fungi on them, brown stains, and you sort those out. Yeah, and so or damaged seed, get also picked out by that. Yeah,
it's very much going to depend on the crop. What that is. So someone else was asking, do you put the hairdryer on a cool setting or a warm seed when seed drying your tomato seeds, and how long do you do it for approximately?
I mean, it depends on the size of the bed you're drying, but you saw it's like in a box with high sides, and don't put a dryer onto a high speed because they blow all over the place. And the cool setting is preferable. As I said, you don't want to heat the seed over 32 Celsius. And it's just to getting the outside of the seed dry so they don't stick together, but also fungi starts to grow quickly if they don't dry fast enough. So like with pumpkin seeds, we do the same. We dry them with a hairdryer till they're not sticky anymore, and then lay them out on a big screen, and then we still put a desk fan blowing air over them all the time, and that will take a few days. But the hairdryer phase is with tomato seeds, maybe 20 minutes at the most to get to that stage. With the pumpkin seeds, maybe a little bit longer. But it is in big seed companies where they have masses of seeds to dry. They have what they call a paddle dryer, which moves the seeds all the time, and is then air blown through from the bottom as well.
Yeah. And one more question for a moment. Are enzymes ever used to break down solid fruit pulp to release seeds?
Tree seeds, I'm not so experienced with tree seeds, but I know that hawthorn and so on, they just let them rot basically. I don't think that, I'm not sure if they add enzymes, but I know with tomato seeds, a lot of tomato seeds, they're not fermented, but they're used in a kind of acid to break down the jelly coat of the seed.
Real Seeds have a really fantastic video of that you can watch online. If you Google Real Seeds acid tomato cleaning, I'm sure you'll find it.
Can I quickly ask a question, Hans?
Yeah.
Does the de-orner, will that clean the hairs of tomato seeds?
The
de-orner or the brusher, will it remove the hairs from tomato seeds?
Yeah, you can, yes. Yeah, we never do that, but I know some of the organic seed companies, they do brush or rub their tomato seed. Yeah, to make them smoother, yeah.
Fantastic. Someone had their hand up, like their virtual hand up, but I've lost them. We have a few more moments, so if there's any more questions, if anyone wants to put into the chat. I had a quick question that I'll put out to both Hans and Fred about parsnips. Hans, you mentioned that generally in a year you'd have about 50% germination from your harvest. Is that just from taking from the top umbels?
No.
From the first
that's all the seeds from one plant, yeah.
Yeah, if you would collect the secondary and tertiary umbels, which you're going to have less in. The first flush, providing you have pollinators, that should be a much better germination rate. Is that right? Yeah.
It has a lot to do with the pollination, because parsnip seed, parsnip plants and also carrot plants are what they call protanders, which they only susceptible after the pollen is released. This sort of a way of encouraging crossing between plants. And so the last seeds, it's less pollen around, basically. So the umbels, which are the side ones, or the ones that ripen last, are more likely to have not been properly pollinated. And some years when it's wet, there are not many pollinators around, or the insects. Like I've noticed on our parsnip seed, when the weather is bad and the temperatures are low, there's not many bees around. But there's still wasps around and so on, but they're not such good pollinators.
Yeah, fantastic. There is another question. Let's just put it up there. So how do most small seed producers germination test their stocks? In soil, agar? I think this is someone that joined a little bit late, as Fred had gone through that. But Hans, would you like to tell us how you do your?
Well, there's three ways we test our seeds. 3 methods. And we follow the sort of international seed testing rules, which is an organization which published these things, what how to do germination tests. And so there is we test a lot of seed on top of filter paper, or between filter paper, or in what they call sand or compost. So all peas, beans, usually, and pumpkins and so on, they are tested in compost. I know that Elsam Seeds, they do all their they do the same, all their pumpkins and so on tested in compost, and then the smaller seeds on top of paper. Beetroots are usually between paper.
We do the same methods. The method which I said in my presentation, that isn't the method which we actually use. It's just an easy way for people to do it. We do similar to Hans. We've got we've actually got a thing called a Copenhagen tank, or a Jacobson apparatus, which is a water bath, and then it has these glass strips that kind of go above the glass, about an inch above or something. And then there's a round bit of filter paper. You put them on top of the glass, so you can put there's 6 strips, each with 5, so you can get 20 or 30 on at once. And then there's a kind of, you cut a wick from filter paper which dangles down into the water bath and pulls the water up, keeping the filter paper round with the seeds on, nice and moist. And then there's a little kind of plastic, looks like a funnel kind of thing with a hole on the top. It goes over the top of each one, the little cone. And that's nice because you can you can lay out a load of things all at the same time, and you can just look. You have an immediate visual idea of what's going on. The other method we use is we've got a germination oven, which is a kind of double-skinned ancient kind of thing with which heats water, but it has really high thermal mass because it's got a skin of water all around it. So we do some stuff in there, but not if we can avoid it, just because you have to constantly taking the trays out and see what's happening. With the Copenhagen tank, you can just see it all there. It's really kind of convenient. And then we do some stuff in compost and some stuff like hand soak in between paper. You can get these it's like pleated filter paper, and you kind of put 2 seeds in each bowl, put it in an old ice cream tub, and then yeah, see what happens. That's really good for things which are multi-germ, like beetroot, where you might get 2 shoots sprouting from 1 seed. So you just want to make sure that each seed is just having a sprout. So if they're all separated in the paper like that, then you've got a much better idea.
Yeah.
By the way, I put the links to the 2 screen companies in the chat. They're both American, Hoffman's and Quality Screen Company. It's very, very difficult in the UK to find a range of like perforated hole sizes, for instance. I think unless you can have it custom made, which will cost a fortune, and you'd have to buy masses of it, because we just don't really have much of a seed industry in this company, in this country. Oh, I did also, I found a photo of our hanging racks if people want to see it.
Oh yeah, I think people do.
It's a cheesy one, I'm afraid, but I found it. So, share screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So you can see it's just tied up, a rope on each corner, and they go quite well between the crop bars, because the crop bars are about 2.5 meters apart in most polytunnels, and the racks are about 2 meters. So you can just do one between each crop bar. Yeah, and then you can put sheets on top, or we put MyPex there as well. You can do various things.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing, Fred. Really smart idea. I think it's really important to have the air traveling underneath at that drying stage. Yeah, it's where a lot of people go wrong. I think there's one more question in the chat box, and then we're going to wrap it up. It's from Debbie at True Harvest Seeds. How dry do you get your seeds ultimately? What relative humidity? Do either of you want to take that?
Yeah, I can go first. We used to dry all of our stuff with silica gel, so we get it down to very, very low humidity and then seal it. But now we're producing more than that's practical for, because you can't have kilos and kilos and kilos of silica gel. But you could do, but it's just not practical. So now we have our storeroom which just has a dehumidifier in it, going all the time, and the room is kept just under 50, probably 45 relative humidity. So that would probably, in the seed, I think I found a chart somewhere which says when relative humidity is X, seed humidity is Y. I can't remember what it would be, but they seem fine in there.
Yeah. Thanks, for Hans.
Yeah, for I mean, the moisture content of the seed is difficult to measure unless you have like a moisture meter, which I use for cereals. But we store our seed, and there's a sort of rule of thumb for it. If your storage room, and this is not for long-term storage. For long-term storage, obviously freezers are used, but for sort of intermediate, for 5 years, 6 years storage time, it's important to have the temperature constant. Yeah, that's one of the main things. And then if you measure the temperature in Fahrenheit and the relative humidity, if you add those two figures together, if that's below 100, that will give you an intermediate storage time of a number of years. So if your temperature is like 12, 13 Celsius, and your humidity is 40, 45, then the Fahrenheit is about 60, I think, and 40 humidity. That's below 100, and that's a safe storage environment. Obviously, doing the whole, you can either store seeds in a sealed container, but you have to then make sure that they're really dry before they go into that. Or you can store seeds in an environment like this, but you need to then store them in bags which can breathe, because they can then still release moisture if they are a little bit on the wet side or not. But you need to be really careful, because one year we thought our beans were dry enough to put them all into bags. They were paper bags, and they still started to heat up. So we had to quickly spread them out again. So you need to give them really time to dry, spread out, and that takes sometimes weeks till the moisture content in the seed and the air has sort of leveled out to the right. And there's tables available to show you, what the seed moisture content would be if you lay them out for a couple of weeks in this air humidity level. I have a table for that. So in the air humidity of 35, 40%, with cabbage seeds that will dry down to 6%, and so on. It tells you in there. You can also over dry things, and with French beans, you can test them very simply yourself with a hammer. If you take a seed and you smash it with a hammer on a hard surface, if the seed shatters, then it's dry enough, and if it sort of flattens, then it's not dry enough. And you do that, you need to, because a lot of the beans, we haven't mentioned that treatment is freezing, putting seeds in the freezer because of little beetles in the beans. And so after harvesting, you dry the seeds till they're dry enough to go into the freezer, and put them straight in the freezer. And the hammer test is quite a good way of testing if they're dry enough to go into the freezer.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess this is one of these things we could do a whole webinar on just drying of seed and talk about it for hours and hours. And the answer is it depends. But I'll just finish up. Sonia has been raising their hands, so I was going to invite them to talk and ask a question. I don't know if the Q&A box wasn't working. Sonia Pine, you had your hand up. Would you like to unmute? Maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe they're having issues with the tech.
You're on mute, Sonia.
No, we've gone past 8:30. So I just want to say a huge thanks once again to Fred and Hans for presenting. Of course, these webinars have come about as a reaction to COVID because we can't get together, but it's also made great opportunity for people to come from different places and learn from each other. So having people from throughout the UK, we have people from Canada, the US, everywhere here tonight. It's been a really fantastic opportunity to do so. Please keep your eyes peeled on all the social media from the various groups that have set up tonight about upcoming webinars. Again, Phil, is there anything else to say before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, I put a link in the in the chat to the we're also going to be a seed session at the Organic Matters conference in October, which on the 13th, which will also be in line. So welcome any of you to join there, either in person or online. So that's you're welcome to do that. And you mentioned the upcoming webinar. So so that will also put a link out to that in the email that goes out to follow up to participants. So
Yeah.
Just to say that.
Oh, actually, I should say, of course, the seed gathering is coming up.
Yes.
Just if you follow the Seed Sovereignty program on Twitter or Facebook, if you don't already, you should. Just go there to find out information about the seed gathering. Yeah. Sorry, I've been nudged in the chat and I'm awfully tired. I should have mentioned that earlier. So we've gone past 8:30 now. So I'm going to say a big thanks again to Hans and Fred. Big thanks to Phil for doing the support tonight. He's done a great job. Been a lot of information has gone into the chat, things that we couldn't show tonight. I hope that people got a chance to open that up and can look further. Thanks everyone so much.
Thanks Richie as well for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Panelists, do we want to stay along for just to usually have a quick wash up straight after if we allow people to leave?